So my name's Kevin Miner. I'm VP of Design and Construction for Topgolf. At Topgolf, you can follow us and you can hashtag Topgolf if you're in the social media thing. So I was hired in 2004 to essentially be a third-party construction consultant for the first Topgolf in the US. That was in Alexandria, Virginia. And then I was hired to do, basically kept on, hopefully because it went well enough, to do the next two, one in Dallas and one in Chicago in 2007. And all three of those were in a third-party construction management role. So I wasn't an official employee, but I do sort of advertise that I was the first Topgolf employee in the US because there was nobody else while we were building those first three. It was a bunch of investors in the UK saying, how's it going? I don't know, I think it looks great, but there's nobody here to tell me whether it's going well or not. So our first office, now we have 2 levels. In downtown Dallas is where our office is. We have 11,000 employees, and our first office was a leased Jeep that I had in Alexandria, Virginia. So that's my sort of claim to fame there. We've got 29 venues internationally, so it's 26 in the US, 3 in the UK right now, and we're getting ready to expand internationally even farther. We're going to go to Australia, hopefully, next year. We're working with Village Roadshow on a couple of properties that they have there. We're also looking in Mexico, Korea, looked at a property the other day in Dubai. So international expansion planned, and we're all holding our collective breath. It's going to be fun. Domestically, we're adding 7 to new venues per year, looking to get to about 100 or 120 stores, right? So we've got 26 domestically now. We want to get to 100, 120. A lot of that depends on how the tertiary markets flush out and whether we can scale Topgolf, which is something that we're working on right now, to be in smaller markets, right? So how do you get your product smaller and not lose the essence of what it is? Because what I'm getting ready to show you in a second, if you haven't been to one, it's a big experience, and we're all very cognizant of the fact that if you start to peel that away and go into some smaller markets, do you essentially lose what made you exciting? So we're at that point now, wherever Michael is. How many of y'all know what Topgolf is? Ever heard of it? All right, fair percentage, 75%. How many have ever been to one and experienced it? Pretty good number, okay. Well then this will look familiar to most of you. If you haven't, hopefully this inspires you to go to one soon. So Peter, if you could cue up the video.
This is a breath of fresh air for the game of golf. This is just what golf needs.
They really have reinvented golf and driving ranges. Whatever you're looking for, it's offered here.
It is the perfect mix of fun and golf. If you're a golfer or not, you can enjoy it.
You got all kinds of targets out here. You got great food. You got so many different aspects to just having a good time, and that's what I like.
It's got a lot of pretty neat things set up here that I think anybody who comes out here will enjoy.
So this is where we are right now, 2016. By the end of the year, we'll have 28 total locations. 5 of those have already opened of the 7 that we're doing this year. Portland, Sacramento, Salt Lake, Vegas, and Cincinnati have opened. Jacksonville will open in November, and Edison, New Jersey will open right before the end of the year. So that'll give us 28 total locations domestically in 20 markets. This slide gives me a heart attack. 13 is what we're going to try to do next year. We've got, our risk management department has got the oxygen and the defib paddles ready to go for our construction team, but I think 8 or 9 of those in Q4, but several of these already under construction, and we think 13 is realistic, and we're excited about these markets. There's a couple that I want to point out in particular on this list. Nashville. So Nashville's under construction right now. I'm going to show some slides on that in a little bit. It's going to have a music venue attached to it. So it's the what we call the Gen 2 model, which is our base templates, what we're rolling out right now, but it's got a music venue attached to it. And we did that obviously because it's Music City, USA. And we felt it was a unique opportunity to do something different there. The other two on this slide are Greenville, South Carolina, and Huntsville, Alabama. And that's where we're starting to look at markets that are a little bit smaller, right? I mean, you can't be in Atlanta and Dallas and Denver and all of these places where we have multiple locations. You got to get into some of the smaller markets. How do we make that happen? So Greenville and Huntsville are going to be the first locations where we have a smaller prototype. And I've been working with our design team for the last probably 5 or 6 months. This is the #1 goal for a design and construction team this year, is to come up with that design. And make sure, as I said earlier, that design keeps the essence of everything that you saw in the video, right? That we get that experience, the Topgolf experience, even when we scale it down. So that's our big goal there. 2018, further out in the pipeline, some really big markets. Obviously 3 places there in California we'd love to be: San Francisco, LA, San Diego. And then into the Northeast. You know, if you guys are in the construction or the real estate business, you know what it takes to get permitted here. It takes a little while. So the entitlements process in these, we've got properties in all these locations, but the entitlements process just kind of pushes it out a little bit longer. So the story, how we got to where we are. The Jolliffe brothers, Dave and Steve Jolliffe, were hitting balls at a range one day, and they were trying to figure out how hitting golf balls could be a little bit more fun. What could make practice more fun than just hitting a bucket of balls. And they came up with essentially the Topgolf concept, which is hitting balls into a target. And the way, the secret sauce here, the way that it works is RFID technology, right? Radio frequency identification works the same way as your toll pass does. Inside every golf ball, there's a microchip. That microchip is passive, right? So when you hook your drive into the woods, you can't get a little transmitter and go find that thing. It's not a beacon. It's a passive chip, just like a barcode. When it passes through a reader, either at the bay, coding it to you, or in the target, saying the golf ball went here, that's when that information comes back. That's when the information is discerned off of the golf ball and read and fed back to you. So that's essentially what creates the game, is hitting golf balls into the targets that you can see there in the outfield. And it's a game atmosphere. So that patented RFID mechanism is what they got done in 1997. They built 3 venues in the UK between 2000 and 2005, Watford, Chigwell, and Surrey. And then a US licensee bought the license to come over here and start rolling it out in the US. Obviously, from a real estate perspective, we just felt like there was more opportunity. That's where I got involved. So I did the first 3, Alexandria in 2005, Dallas in 2007, Chicago also in 2007, as a third-party construction consultant. And then there was a hold. So at the end of 2007, when we'd done those 3, they came to me and they said, look, Kevin, after we get our money together and we're ready to roll this thing out, we'd rather just come hire you. We don't want to continue to go through your consulting firm. And I said, key phrase there, when you get your money ready, let me know. I absolutely will take that phone call. Because it's exciting. It was exciting to be a part of it. And so we kind of thought around 2008 that's what was going to happen. And instead, 2008, something different happened, which was Lehman Brothers, and lots of us probably out of work or changing jobs. So nothing happened between 2008 and 2009 except operationally. And it actually was really good for us because it taught us where the revenue streams were coming from. We ran those 3 sites on a concept that had originally been opened as a family fun center, right? So we had kids there more often. We were developing with mini golf. We were doing batting cages. We had arcade games in there. And it was essentially a family fun center. Busy on Friday, busy on Saturday, not so busy Tuesday at noon. So during that period, 2008, 2009, what we were able to do at Dallas was tweak the model a little bit. And we found out corporate events. Started doing really well with corporate events in Dallas. Started turning it into a nightclub at night. And now you've got more revenue streams. And you've got the idea of something that can be rolled out. And so that period was critical. Even though we weren't building between 2008 and 2009, we were refining the product and we were learning what it was. So that in 2010 and 11, When we started the rollout, that's when I got hired as director of construction, we knew what we wanted to build. And so we increased to 3 levels. We went to some higher end finishes. We expanded the menu to be something more than just grill food. And so it was a little bit more refined experience, and that's what allowed corporate events to start happening and the nightclub feel to start happening. And you still get the family fun center aspect of it. It's just a little bit more high end. And that's essentially what we've been rolling out since 2012. The same model that we built in Houston in 2012 is what we're building right now, with the exception of Vegas, which just opened in June of this year, and that's because it was Vegas. We'll see some slides on that here in a bit. So a question that I get a lot, really ever since I've been with Topgolf is, does Topgolf franchise? And the answer is no, not yet. Why? Because we were trying to control that evolution of the brand. We needed to know what we were. If we had just come right out of the gates selling licenses all over the place, I mean, Topgolf in Florida could have been different than Topgolf in Arizona. And so we really wanted, and the investors really wanted control of that. Let's figure out what we are before we start selling it in other locations. And we still don't franchise. We are still privately owned. But as we start the international expansion, that's when we're going to start turning on the franchise model. We'll see how that goes. We're working with a company who's going to help us sort of roll out to become franchise ready. And they asked us a bunch of questions, and we went through that and said, boy, we don't have any of this stuff. But we'll get there. We'll get there. A couple of pictures that just show the evolution of the box, if you will, the building. So this was Topgolf Dallas that opened in 2007. Built on a pretty tight budget because there wasn't a lot of money at the time. Topgolf Allen, that's the next iteration. Now you're at 3 levels, a little bit more high-end feel. Like I said, better menu, different experience. We refined that one in 2012. And really, this is where the rollout kicks off, right? We started doing 2, 3, 5, 9 last year, 7 this year, 13 next year. They all look very similar to this. This is the last one, Topgolf Hillsboro. That's just west of Portland. We opened that August of this year, and you can kind of see really similar elevations. I mean, it's essentially the same box, and that's the effort to try to present the same experience. So when a guest walks in Portland, or they walk in Midtown Atlanta, or they walk in at Scottsdale, it's going to be the same kind of experience because that's the product that we're trying to deliver. All right, so what is germane to this conversation here for design and construction people? How do we do this? There it is. Our architect is Aria Group Architects out of Chicago. And our design build contractor is Arco Murray. Arco Murray is, well, they're bigger now. They were probably 175 to 200 on ENR scale. But what's key about them is that they're a design build firm. And I wish I could say it was by design that we got to them, but it was by fortunate occurrence. They did the Chicago Wooddale facility in 2007, and we just liked their business model. Essentially what they do is they hire young, really talented, really smart engineers out of places like Notre Dame, Stanford, Purdue. They get those guys working 65, 70 hours a week, and they're fantastic at putting together programs. And that's really what we needed, because everything we had been told up until this point by other successful retailers was, don't build an in-house construction department, right? Leverage those resources, get that risk out while you're still small and evolving. So we didn't want to build a big team. Arco was willing to do that for us. And so they become really integral to the process. They're not just the GC. That's why this first slide is up here. They're involved intimately in the pre-construction process. We do have an in-house real estate team. They work with the national brokers to pick out the sites. They do property negotiation, due diligence, everything that you would expect of a real estate team. They're figuring out the finances, what it takes to make the deal work. Aria Group is producing P&Z packages. They're doing whatever the local design changes that are required by the health department or whomever to make it allowable. And then they're also attending design architectural review board meetings on our behalf if necessary. What Arco's doing is they're doing site surveying, geotechnical investigation, horizontal test fit plans, right, to make sure that the product works on the property, feasibility analysis, Site ops preliminary engineering. They run a model called site ops. It's a site optimization software. What it does is it takes our template building and outfield topography net poles and then puts that into a site plan that's got the existing topography, takes in cost per square foot of retaining wall, cost per yard of export, cost per yard of import, all of these various parameters, and then starts pushing the model up and down to come up with an optimized cost to build that site. You know, we're on 15 acres. It's 65,000 square feet, 12 to 16 acres of development. So it's a big piece of property. It's not, you know, an interior build out. And so we need to find out, and that's what's going to be unique every single time, right? The box is the box, but the 15 acres is not. It's going to be whatever that local topography is. It's going to be any clearing if we've got to do that. And so that's what that software does, pushes the site up and down and says at the end of the day, you're optimized right here, a little bit of retaining wall on the right side, 3-to-1 slopes to the left, and the model works. They're feeding that information back to our real estate team with something called a POM pricing exercise, premium order of magnitude. And that's what the real estate guys want to know. Can we do this deal or can we not do this deal? This is just a slide off of ARCO's website. Obviously, they're advocating a design build method. It works for us. It allows us to learn from lessons learned in the field, learn lessons from operation, and dovetail those quickly into the detailed drawings and get to construction quickly, which ultimately gets us open sooner. This is a red circle. I'm not really sure why. Design and construction process. So this is where it gets to my team. We do have construction project managers in-house at Topgolf. They work for the director of construction underneath me. We have 7 guys right now, and we figure they can manage 1.5 projects at a time. Usually their stress curve is, this is groundbreaking here, their stress curve is at the end of the 9 to 10 month build, right? FF&E installation, all of our installation. Another job may be coming along where it's in earthwork, clearing, site utilities, and so they can manage that while there's, you know, at the height of stress in that other job. So they do about 1.5 jobs at a time. They're managing the GC, which is Arco Murray. They're also managing separate contracts that are not part of the general contractor. That's the golf barrier netting, low voltage and AV, kitchen equipment, FF&E and signage, and then the proprietary installation, which is what we do. That's the artificial turf, the Topgolf target interiors, so where the netting and all the cabling inside there, and then all the game bay equipment at the base. We install all of that, and our construction PMs are the ones who are sequencing our team in to do that build process. RE Group they're the architect of record. They do all the A sheets in a direct contract with us. So we've extracted the architecture from the design build process. We hold that contract. And then Arco has the engineering and everything else. So they're the civil, MEP, structural, engineering design, as well as permitting, GMAX presentation, subcontract buyout, and everything else that you would expect. One of the things that's nice about, I mentioned that site ops model, right, that pushes the site up and down. It's also a preliminary engineering process. They'll take that to a certain level that makes sense. Then they'll hand it off to a local civil engineer who puts the bow on it, knows everybody to get the process through to have a site permit and take it to the finish line. So it's a nice place to take all the lessons that you've learned, take that design to a particular point in time, and then hand it off to a local team to take it to the finish line. So you get the best of both worlds. You get the benefit of all the lessons learned from all the jobs that you've done to date, but then you also get the benefit of the local team. Did you make the changes I asked for? That depends. Do you remember what you asked me to change? No. Yep, made the changes. I like to say this to operations guys all the time. They always want it to be something different. So we design what we think we want the building to be, right? And we all agree this is what we're going to do, right? Yes, we all agree. And we go build it. We build what we all agreed we were going to build. It's beautiful. Look at it. And the operators come in. They tell us everything that we've done wrong. We have 450 associates at every new Topgolf, and we might as well call them critics, right? Because as soon as they come in, they're saying, well, why did you put this over here? Why did you put that over there? You know, why don't we have... We had a guy who said, you know, it would be a lot easier if we would just put trash chutes out the windows down to dumpsters, and then we wouldn't have to carry the trash out. Suggestion box, right over here. But you have to be able to filter through that because you've got to sift through the stuff that is maybe not as worthwhile, but the stuff that is. Because we don't know everything. Of course we don't know everything. We're figuring this out as we go along, and you get a lot of great ideas. But if you're building 7, 8, 10, 13 next year, and you're learning lessons at light speed, and you're getting feedback from the operations, you're learning lessons on the construction process, how do you dovetail those in, right? And that's why we think that the design build process works for us. It's why we've almost exclusively stuck with Arco Murray because the system works. Now we have done a couple of projects with a couple of other GCs. We had the one-off, which was Vegas. We'll look at that in a second. And we've had 2 other projects that we've done with another big GC. But our reluctance to go in that direction is because the system that we built right now works and it delivers the product at a reliable price. And we've figured that out through testing in the market. We've gone out to bid for some things and figured out where the pricing is. And the product that Arco is giving us is a good one. So when you learn your lessons on the operations side and on the construction side, what do you end up with? You end up with redesign, you end up with rebuild. Hopefully you're not putting trash chutes out to dumpsters, and you end up with a weekly global change call. And that's how we put those lessons learned into the next iteration of the job, right? We get on a call once a week and we sit down and we say, what are the things that we need to look at to roll into the next jobs? Where can those fit? Where has the ship already sailed so we don't have time for that one? I read that slide when it first came out, weekly global change call, and I thought, what are we trying to change sewage into drinking water for African children? It's not that complex, but it's what kinds of changes are we making to our product that makes it better, and how do we roll those in to a dynamic build environment at a pace of, as I said, 8, 10, 13 a year. Yes, changes dynamically while they're happening when they come and tell you, hey, we need to rip out all the infrastructure you just put in for the left half of the kitchen because we're reconfiguring everything. It hurts in every way that this describes right here. But when you're done, it's totally worth it. Because if you've been to one of these facilities at a VIP party, after you spent 9, 10 months, a year of your life getting this thing built, and you see everybody having fun, it is 100% worth all of the headache. New stuff. So a couple of things, we've talked about gearing the model towards a specific product, right? We want to make it cookie cutter. So we're going to build the same thing in every market so everybody can have the same Topgolf experience. And it gets a little homogeneous. But there are some places where you want to do something a little bit different. So what happens when you get the opportunity to partner with a brand like MGM? The first thing is you get a new budget. And you still go over. Yeah, we didn't build this for the same that we built Nashville. But it was fun. I mean, look, Topgolf Vegas, if you get the chance to go out there and see it, I would highly encourage it. It's Topgolf on steroids. So here are just some of the stats that talk about what's there. Most of our levels are 3 levels. Topgolf Vegas is 4. There's 112,000 square feet, 109 hitting bays, 4 private suites. Callaway has a fitting center out there that will fit you for a set of clubs. There's a stage for live music. Today's Monday. Thursday, I think Blues Traveler's playing out there. This is a Blues Traveler crowd, right? We're about, yeah. So stage for live music, pools, cabanas. I mean, as I said, it's Topgolf on steroids. So I wanted to show just a couple of pictures of the interior. This picture shows the front entry patio, front entry lobby. Those are the reception desks. It's white acrylic, backlit with color changing LEDs, which we like to do a lot of because they look cool. This picture on the left is a 3-story chandelier that hangs through the lobby. It was really cool. We had a guy an associate went and he took his cell phone and he set it on video and dropped it out the top and hit it on slow motion. And so it looks like it's going to warp speed down through the middle of that thing. It was really cool. The right side of that is the VIP pool on the upper level there. It's the chairman's suite, and then the cabana pool at the bottom. So that's the 3rd level and the 4th level. MGM Sig Towers in the background. Another view of the pool right there with, again, the VIP pool is up on the left side there, and then swim-up bar on the right side. Almost forgot about that. This is the Riv bar, the Riviera bar. It's on the lower level. There's 5 bars throughout the Topgolf facility. This one, the property is actually on the old Tropicana golf course. So it's right behind the MGM Convention Center, just as we saw in those pictures, just east of the SIG Towers, so a block east of the Strip. But this is where the Tropicana golf course was. So Sammy Davis Jr., Frank Sinatra, Rat Pack, those guys were all out here. We supposedly found some things from back in the day, and then they mysteriously disappeared. And we were disappointed, but it was Vegas, and we didn't ask questions. We just said, okay, we'll get a different product. This is what we call the yard. This is right in the middle of the venue. It's where the stage happens. So if there's not a music act, the way this picture is taken right here on the left, there's games, there's bag toss, there's shuffleboard, kind of fun things. It's a it's a 3-story space. If you look up at the top there, yes, that's a couple of big-ass fans, literally the big-ass fans. I'm sure you're all familiar with that. And these windows, this atrium space opens, so when the weather's nice, it's open to the air. This is a 60-foot LED screen, and when the music acts come, they set the stage up right here. And then if you kind of walk to that space underneath the LED screen and you turn and look back up, that's the view that you get there on the right. So you have levels 3 and 4 looking down over the music act while it's live. It's pretty fun. This is, I call it the yellow bar. It's the runway bar. It's for events. It's off to the side where you can see the runways from McCarran International Airport. And a lot of the stuff that we do is a lot of blues and grays, kind of masculine. And so this is a pretty good contrast for when you walk in and you're in the rest of the place that is, as I said, it's blues, it's grays, it's a little darker, and you walk in and it just provides an interesting contrast. This is the lounge on the 4th level, and those are different types and textures of artificial turf in the background. View out to the outfield. That's Steve Wynn's casino straight out due north there, and his Ferris wheel to the left. That's 4 LED screens at a distance of 112 feet, I believe. So it can be one continuous image that's 112 feet long, or we can divide it up into 4 different screens. Topgolf Nashville. That's under construction right now. We broke ground this summer. Should open July. I think substantial completion is July 7th, so it should open August of next year. Again, Music City, USA, we wanted to do something a little bit different, felt like there was a different opportunity there. This is renderings of the front, obviously because we're under construction, we don't have it done yet, but we're working with a local promoter. Tim McGraw's manager is Nick Kua, been in the industry for a long time, got some crazy stories of Motley Crue back in the 80s. I mean, I could drink beer with that guy all night, really great stories. But he's helping us put this together. He's helping us work with some consultants on the acoustic side to make sure that we get the acoustics right, because we want to make sure that if we're bringing music acts in, that it sounds good. You don't want a bad reputation in the music industry if you're selling yourself as a music venue. It'll be able to hold 500 standing room only guests with another 50 on the VIP levels there. So that's a VIP patio. If you go through those 2 overhead doors, it's a mezzanine that looks down over the dance floor and the stage. And there'd be another 50 people that you could put on lower level game bays that are adjacent to the music venue. Lower level is going to have a bar. If you've been to one of our venues and it's a right-hand entrance, this is what the lower level lobby would look like. So those stairs up on the left side, that goes up to the lobby. And again, if you've been one, you know what those stairs are. You come down the stairs. This is our typical lower level lounge. However, we're putting a bar in. And behind the image, if I'm standing right there looking at the bar, behind me is the music venue. And there's people hopefully enjoying the music venue. And like I said, that opens in August next year, the good Lord willing. That's it. That's all I got. Questions? Thanks. So if you got 10 minutes?
Yeah, we got time for questions.
No, I was just curious, the Vegas one, which is your flagship so far, I mean, what kind of construction costs did you incur?
70 plus,
Okay.
with a little M and another little M.
Amazing. So, and the other question is, on your maybe dialed down facilities, you can be a little bit smaller. How much acreage do you think you're going to need?
That's a great question. So here's what we're trying to figure out. Ultimately, the goal is to be able to build smaller markets for a smaller cost. And so we're in the very preliminary stages of the design right now. I got the first renderings last week. When we go to price that, the cost has to come down to a certain level that makes it worthwhile for a market that's not as dense, and we expect to do less revenue. So the hope is that you build a smaller building, but you get the same outfield, and therefore the size is going to be similar. So maybe you're in the 10 acres, let's call it. It's going to be smaller, and the parking lot's going to be smaller because you're expecting fewer people. But you want to do the full outfield if we can. If the costs from that start coming back and saying, well, the math doesn't work, so real estate doesn't want to do the deal until we can get the cost down even farther, then we're going to have to look at some sort of, you bring that far net in a little bit and you start using some of the virtual world mixed with the real world. We don't ever want the real world targets to go away. Because if you've been to one of those facilities and seen them at night, and the target LED lights are going, and the music is going with the LED lights, it's cool. And you don't want to take that all away and make it a virtual game. So some aspect of reality has to be there. How much, again, can we cut away and still keep the Topgolfness? So it's a great question. We don't know the answer yet. Got to figure it out fast, though.
I was curious about, with your smaller markets, if you might have an opportunity to do leagues. Have you ever, to generate more trips per your...
Yeah, I'm sorry, did you say leagues?
Yeah, like...
L-E-A-G-U-E-S.
Correct, like a bowling league or...
We do that at our facilities now.
Yeah.
So we have league play. And one of the things that's neat about the Vegas venue is we've just introduced something called the Topgolf Tour, where teams of 2 can go play in a tournament, and you play very specific games. It is flighted for ability, and then winners compete to go to Vegas. So the fact that we've got Vegas out there now gives sort of a prize level for guys at the local. And we've run some test tours, some of our locations, but leagues we've had for probably 2 or 3 years now. Yeah, and they're really successful.
Right here.
Yep.
So I live in Dallas and drive by the Colony location. I know you guys struggled with wind and ice one time. How did you take care of that, and what other unique construction challenges have you had?
And you talk about lessons learned. Holy cow. So one of the most difficult things, if not the most difficult thing about trying to roll out a product like we are at 8, 10, 12, whatever it is per year, is the golf barrier netting industry. It's like 3 people. And maybe you guys are those 3 guys are here, I don't know. But I mean, it's not like, I swear I think there are people in our company that think you just go to Home Depot and Lowe's and you buy net poles that are 170 feet tall. It's like getting those things designed, permitted, built is a chore. And making sure that you have the resources to do those one right after the other when you have a limited pool of guys doing it, that's really tough. Colony was a lesson learned about splice details. We'll leave it at that.
Who attends your weekly global change calls?
So the weekly global change call is the director of construction, Dominic Crespo, and then project managers from both ARIA Group and from Arco Murray. And essentially what they're doing is they're reviewing the list of inputs that we've gotten, whether it's from the construction side or from the operations side or even from the design side, and saying, first of all, what does it cost? Do we want to do it for the cost? And if the answer is yes, and we want to make it a global change, where can it get rolled in, right? Has Portland already sailed? We don't have time. Then the project manager for Portland will say, I don't have time to do that. I'm not going to get that global change. Nashville might say, yeah, I haven't put that infrastructure in yet. If you get me an ASK, an architectural sketch from ARIA, and we get the engineering changed, I got about 3 weeks. If I don't have to get it re-permitted, I can put it in. And we have those conversations, I mean, almost on a daily basis, but the global change call only happens once a week. What's interesting, and if I could elaborate on that a little bit more, is that we have evolved the process so well that we're almost producing manufacturing drawings. So I got a global change request because they just come through my email box and I let Dominic pick them up now, unless one strikes my eye. And one last week that came through from ARCO because they are so focused, they're hyper-focused on improving the process, right? How can we build it better, faster, cheaper, and get the same result? And then I saw one that said, we're going to change the foundation wall at that entry, which is, that is a foundation wall back in the back at the threshold to the door. We need to move that up 4 inches. And it's probably going to cost about $450, so it's a nominal cost projected for future jobs. You know, it's the cost of the concrete, a little bit higher forms, whatever it is, taller rebar throughout. And I went to the PM and I said, Mike, why are we doing this? And he's like, well, it's better. It makes that detail come across with the beam a little bit better. And I said, does the detail we're doing right now not work? He goes, no, it works, but it'll just be better. I said, man, we'll never stop, right? If we're trying to turn this into literally manufacturing drawings, we're trying to turn this into a machine process, the drawings are already, you know, 150-page set, more when you tack on the civil site plans. But we're in a 9-month build or a 10-month build, you've got too much information for a team to digest, right? They're going to make a mistake regardless of how well you do the drawings. So those are the kinds of things that we're having to go through and say, let's make these global changes about things that save money or substantially increase the experience. But let's not change just for the sake of change so that, you know, engineers with OCD can say, oh, now it all lines up. Even though I have OCD, and I'm guilty of that.
So, Kevin, a couple of more questions.
Sure.
Would you mind sharing your financial and contractual arrangement with ARCO? And why would you split away ARIA's A drawings from the design-build process?
Yeah, that's another great question. So what was your first question? Let me ask that again.
Contractual and financial arrangements.
Contractual. So we agreed way back in the day, even before I was hired, and we're still okay with it, to a scaled fee percentage with ARCO, right? We do GMAX contracts, so they go out into a market, they bring all the bids together, and then we sit down and we have a GMAX meeting, and we look at all the numbers for every single trade and compare them. The beauty of having ARCO do every single one and having those same guys in Chicago bid every single one is they bring data from the last 20 builds. And they go, man, when we were in Denver, we got this glass for 80%. What's going on in Phoenix, right? Let's go talk to the lowest guy and see if we can coach him down. Let's see if maybe we can take the risk on that because we've done this 20 times before and he hasn't. Maybe we pay the guy from Denver to come down and do the job in Phoenix. We have that kind of ability because it's the same guys in Chicago that are pricing it every single time. And so it has worked out and we have not adjusted that flexible fee. And it's economies of scale, right? If they only did 2 per year, they get a little higher percentage. If we start getting into 4, 5, 6 per year, that percentage comes down. It's scaled. And then you had another question after that.
Why did you separate out ARIA?
That's right. We did that after Allen. So Allen was the first 3-level venue, and the architectural sheets were underneath ARCO Murray. And the problem that we had with that once Allen got built was ARIA was still involved, but they were just doing schematic design. And so they would put the idea together, and we would say, gosh, we love that idea. And then we gave it to ARCO, and ARCO stripped it all out because they had a design mentality that said, hey, I got to get this down to a certain number, which is right to an extent. But when the cove light detail gets built wrong because the girl who designed it didn't get to draw it, then that's a problem. So she comes out and she says, sort of what I wanted, but not really. Doesn't that look stupid? And I go, yeah, it kind of does. Well, that's because we gave it to the contractor. So we said, contractor, we love what you do, but you're in contracting for a business, for a reason. Architect, we want your design. We want to be able to control the aesthetic. And that's why we pulled the architectural sheets out. So we do. We have a design contract with ARIA, and then we have a design build contract for everything else, engineering, structural, the whole thing, civil engineering as well. And that keeps them involved in the pricing so that we understand what stuff is going to be. And if it's behind the walls, do we really care how it happens? No. GC sometimes is going to be much more efficient in telling us how that should get done than some engineer that we're paying over here who may not have ever built anything.
How active is ownership? Do they remain fairly active in the process, or is it kind of, are they more investors at this point?
Which part specifically, how active are they? I'm going to be careful about how I answer this.
Well, I guess, when you sit down, as far as like the site selection, how hands-on are they, I guess? I mean, are they very active on the site selection, the deal making, the design, or?
Yeah, so we have a bi-weekly meeting called Investment Committee, and it's essentially where the real estate guys sit down and they say, it's the first step in the process, and they say, this is a market that we want to go into. Can we spend a certain amount of money on investigation and feasibility? And people will say, thumbs up, thumbs down. That also has to get approved by our board. Then you go to the next step, and it's like, do we want to go ahead and invest money doing a full set of drawings now, going after permitting? Here's the level of confidence that we have that this job is going to come in at that cost and do the revenues. So there is a sign-off process where both C-level, the executives, as well as the board have to approve it. Sometimes we've gone too fast. We've gotten to a point where we realized we were too far down and nobody told the board. It's like, man, I hope they approve this one. We've already moved. But it's been a couple of years of flushing out what that process looks like and making sure that we go get the boxes checked from ownership. And it was fun in the beginning because we were building them for a lot less and they were making a ton of money and it was all good. I can do whatever you want, build 1 million of them. But construction costs are going up, right? We actually, at the last board meeting, first time ever, 2 projects that we've been working on got deferred. Didn't have an appetite for it. Cost was too high. Revenue projections, a little flatter. ROI not there. So we're definitely paying much more attention now.
We have time for one more question down here.
Sure.
So on your weekly global change call, a great idea. I could anticipate how you get the questions or the changes or recommendations from your contractor, architects, and maybe internally. Mm-hmm. But you mentioned your actual operators, the people who are operating the venue, the suggestion box. How do you go about obtaining those ideas and then filtering it through your change call?
God bless the director of operations. That's his job. Filter out the trash chute idea. That is another great question. So that's what happens. Essentially, you have each site general manager is probably how you might term it. Normally as a general manager. We call the head of each location the director of operations. They report in turn to a national director of operations. We have 3 of those national directors. Each of them hold about 8 to 10 stores. So we want that information to come up to the 3 national directors of operations. And those guys bring suggested changes to me and the COO, and then anybody else we feel like might need to be part of a discussion in order to make it a global change, right? Do we think this is worth a global change or not? This might be a one-off, right? We might decide we want to do a patio in Scottsdale, but we don't know that we're going to do it everywhere yet, so that's just a one-off. That's not a global change. That's a CapEx project. But I would love operations to have all the responsibility and just come tell me what I need to execute, please. Just tell me what I need to execute.
This was great, and again, thank you so much for joining us
and
sharing the story.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, everybody. Yeah, thank you.